Yes, we can.
Perfect. So let's start with the first webinar, which is focused on ECCo installation and upgrade on Windows platform.
Sorry, just one thing. Is it possible to oh, yours already started. Sorry, I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me introduce myself. My name is Drahoslav Stejska. I'm working as ECCo technical team leader for several customers. And since the year 2016, I'm in maintenance specialist team for several projects in energetics. I started on ECP3 and then I continued on ECP4 and EDX. And I'm working also on several other projects as OBDE and PCR.
Hello once more. My name is Daniel Janota, and I'm analyst of ECCo development since last year.
Okay, so let's take a look on the agenda. So firstly, we will take a look on some prerequisites and general information before installing and upgrading the ECCo platform, such as description of minimum hardware requirements, network flows configuration, deployment types, and so on. And then we will provide you some information about new features for the latest release. In the second part, there will be a practical part where we will introduce you upgrade procedure for ECP endpoint and EDX toolbox. And then we will follow with the installation, configuration, and the registration of ECP endpoint, EDX toolbox, and Java 11. So let's start with the prerequisites and the general information. Firstly, I would like to mention that all provided information is available in the documentation in ECP and EDX upgrade guide and the installation guide. If you are interested in the latest features and fixes in the new version, then see release notes. Regarding the hardware requirements, there is no change in compare with the previous version of ECCo. Please note that the real hardware requirements may depend on message traffic on your ECCo client. However, the minimal requirements counts with the traffic like 1,000 of messages per hour, and for ECP endpoint, it is 4 cores CPU, 8 GB RAM, and 40 GB disk space storage. For the EDX toolbox, 2 cores CPU is sufficient, with the RAM memory 4 GB and 20 GB on the disk storage. We also recommend usage of the virtual machines, which can be resized if you found that you need more resources, CPU or memory. Okay, let's move on the network flows configuration. Before installing your ECP endpoint and EDX toolbox, make sure that all network data flows are open. From ECP endpoint, you need to have connection on the component directory, which is by default on port 8443. This is HTTPS connection. And also outgoing connection to the ECP broker, which is running on the port 5671 and protocol NQPS. For the ECP endpoint, you also need to allow incoming connection on port 8443, which is used for the graphical user interface, and also connection on NQP or NQPS on internal broker, which is running on port 5672. For the EDX toolbox, there is sufficient connection only on the internal broker of the EDX toolbox and of course to ECP endpoint, because toolbox is integrating to an ECP endpoint via AMQP or NQPS. And when we are talking about graphical user interface, the EDX toolbox is running on port 8443 by default. If you have the installation on the same server, then you need to adjust the port numbers to not overlap. If you are using external database, then you need to allow also connection from ECCo components to the database, but I will mention this on the later slide. So communication protocols were already covered. So for messaging, we are using MQPS protocol, and for REST API, graphical user interface, and also web services, we are using HTTPS protocol. Now let's take a look on deployment types. So we have two basic deployment types. One is standalone deployment, and the second one is high availability deployment. The standalone deployment means that all services like database, internal broker, and the application is installed on the one server. This is a default configuration and the simplest installation option. Everything is bundled in the one server, in the one installation package. If you want to allow high availability for your ECCo applications, then you need to install external database, and then you can install one or more ECCo instances. If you want to minimize downtime of your ECCo components, then you need to install at least two ECCo components which are sharing the same database, or the database can be running in the cluster. It depends on your requirements. Then if one ECP or EDX application component goes down, the system will continue to function without any outage. When talking about supported external databases, you can see that there are 4 external databases supported. It is Oracle, 12c, and 12c and 19c, which is listening on port 1521. Then MS SQL Server 2016 are running on port 1433. And then there is support for MySQL version 5.7 and 8, listening on port 3306. And the last one is PostgreSQL, which is available in versions 9.6 and 13, and listening on port 5332. The default database is embedded, which is Apache Derby, and this is managed by ECP in this application, and does not need any additional setup. When you need to set up external database, then it is recommended to follow ECP and EDX installation guide. For ECP, the creation of application schema and configuration of user access is described in chapter 13, external databases, and for EDX toolbox in chapter 10, external database. Now let's take a look on the way how to get the installers for your ECCo client. For ECP endpoint and EDX toolbox, the installers are available online on ENTSO-E portal on the URL /data/ECP or /data/EDX. If you need to establish your own ECCo central components, which are component directory, ECP broker, and EDX service catalog, then you need to contact ENTSO-E, and ENTSO-E will provide you installers on share file. The access is granted by Christoph Mondazzi. Before installing the ECP endpoint, you also need to obtain components codes for your components. So The components code must be unique within each ECP network, and usually you need to contact your local issuing office or central issuing office for your country to get this new code for the production environment. This code is Energy Identification Coding code, EIC, and the schema and the rules are described on ENTSO-E portal on the URL /data/energy identification code EIC. Okay, now let's take a look on the new features for the latest release of the ECP endpoint 4.9 and EDX Toolbox 1.10. So the biggest change is probably adding support for LDAP and Active Directory for authentication for all ECCo components. Next feature is displaying background jobs on graphical user interface. So there is a new use case, new screen on the graphical user interface, and it contains information about background jobs, about information when the job starts, about duration, and about the status. And there is also new Prometheus metrics for these background jobs. There is also new information on a message status for both ECP endpoint and EDX Toolbox on the message page. And on the list of the components, there is easier filtering, while it is possible to filter the components based on organization name. In the latest release, we have also mitigated Spring4Shell vulnerability by Spring Libraries upgrade. And there is several more improvements and fixes for the detailed information about release and the scope. Please see release notes. So that's all from the theoretical part. Now, if you have any question, you can ask.
Is there any chance in the future to have the services running on Mac OS also? It's a random question because I'm using a Mac OS and I was trying yesterday to see if I can use the Unix installation guide for it, but it didn't work. So I needed to create a virtual machine, and use, as you guys recommended, in Azure to be able to install the SCP. So
yeah, so far this is not in the scope. However, you can raise the request in ENTSO-E Jira, and if there will be more participants requiring this support, then it could be implemented to the scope. But you need to contact ENTSO-E as the product owner.
Yep, I will contact myself after a while. I will learn a little bit about the applications. Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I was just curious to see if maybe there's a hack or something, but no problem. VM works also. Thanks, guys.
Okay, if there is no more questions, I will leave forward to my colleague, Daniel.
Thank you. So, let's start with the second part of this webinar, which is upgrade and installation. We will start with upgrade of ECP endpoint and EDX Toolbox, and right after that, we will install the ECP endpoint and EDX Toolbox, also with Java 11 for the upgrade. I will start with showing you the version on the user interface and just process the upgrade. So start both applications, upgrade them, and start it again. So let's start with great. So, here. So here is the ECP endpoint, which is running on version 4.8.2 currently. And here is also EDX toolbox, which is, as you can see right here, running on version 1.9.2. Now I will stop both applications. Just check that they are running. Also check the documentation and move to chapter 5, especially chapter 5, especially 5.1, which is upgrade of ECP endpoint on Windows. So we did the first step. We stopped the application. Right now, you can just check the documentation. So upgrade Java is not necessary for us because we are upgrading from a higher version than 4.7.2. The same applies on internal broker configuration. Again, we are upgrading from higher version. So the next step is just install a new version of application using graphical user interface on Windows. So I will just execute this file, installer. Choose the upgrade, like an existing ECP installation, and find the right path. Just click on next, and this is basically all. So we did this. I just explain also with screenshots. Yeah. For us right now, it's not necessary to update any configuration because there were no mandatory changes since last version. So everything what I can do right now is just start the application again. This is also the last step, the upgrade of ECP endpoint. It will maybe take a minute, so let's move to the EDX upgrade guide, specifically chapter 5.1, same as on ECP. And let's upgrade the EDX again. The application is already stopped, so again, backup configuration. There is no need for us right now to do that because we can change those ports manually. It's just few numbers. Again, upgrade of Java is not necessary, so we were running a newer version. And the same applies for the internal broker configuration. So the same as on ECP, just install new version of application. executing this file. Choose upgrade. Find correct path. And just hit the next button and application will be upgraded. And then just start it again. All processes explained in documentation. Also, no mandatory changes from last version, so there's no need for any changes from our side. So I just started the application. Yeah, and here, as you can see, the ECP endpoint is successfully upgraded. Here you can see the version 4.9.0. Toolbox. Took a few minutes, so I can just send a message to itself. Bigger. For example, text as message type. Send it. Yeah, and the message is successfully received. Yeah, and here is the toolbox. Also, here you can see the version 1.0. So the upgrade was successful. Again, I can send a message to, for example, Zebra, which is another toolbox in this network. Yeah, and the message is successfully sent and received. So that's all for the upgrade process. If you have any questions.
Yeah, maybe I can see in the chat there's a question related with the theoretical part on the MS SQL Server 2019 support in the near future. There's expected support for the MS SQL 2019, and this is already part of the ECCo backlog. So in some future version, the support will be included.
Yes, thank you. The answer was quite clear.
Okay, so let's move to the installation. For the installation, we will firstly install Java 11 and then install both ECP endpoint and EDX toolbox applications with encrypted passwords. For ECP, the process will be a little bit easier because everything what we have to do is just install the application, start it, register it under component directory, and then as prerequisites for EDX, just update runtime configuration and add a new user to users properties. In installation of EDX toolbox, then we will change the port because EDX is running on the same server as ECP, and then update the configuration, so code, port, alias, etc., and also replace key store. Let's move here and let's start with ECP endpoint. Firstly, we have to install Java. Just mentioned here in chapter 5.1. Move to the server. that there is no Java installed right now. Implementation. I will just, I already downloaded the installation file, so I'll just execute it and install Java. Sorry. Yeah, so here's the installation file. Double click, yeah, and set up the Java. For this, I have to set Java home variable. For example, and also to make it easier, enable jar files association. That Java is successfully installed. The next step will be installation of ECP endpoint with encrypted password. Move to the documentation, to chapter 7.2. Yeah, just installation on Windows. Yeah, so just for the installation, just double click the jar file and choose the installation, and then any other things. So I will choose the install as a standalone application. Choose the installation path. Right now, I can choose if I want to register it as a Windows service. In this case, I want to, so I will check that. Also, I can allow the automated start after the server startup. Can let it like it is. And right now, I can choose which password settings I want to use. I will define my custom password and encrypted password for user password path type, and also technical account password type. And then I have to choose some key. Also encryption algorithm. I will use this one as the default volume. Password for administrating login, and then authentication key store, internal broker, and also key stores in database. So installation is successfully finished. I can show you that the passwords are encrypted. For example, in this file, you can see the encrypted password.
if during the installation we chose the default passwords, is there any chance we can go back and change to the encrypted ones?
I think you can run the installation file again.
Oh, okay, okay.
Write it, or if you just want to change it to plain passwords, you can change it in configuration files.
Yeah, or there's a tool called Yasift. You can install it on your machine, and you can like manually encrypt the password, and then insert the encrypted password to your ECP or EDX configuration. So it is possible to change it manually, even to the encrypted password.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, for the next step is start ECP and register it under a component directory. In starting process is described in chapter 7.2.4. Yeah, which is here. Just starting as service, and the registration process is described in chapter 8. Right here. I'll start the ECP endpoint. And in the meantime, we can check the documentation. So the registration process is really easy. Just access the graphical user interface, log in into ECP endpoint, then insert the key store. It's a key store which is provided by component directory administrator. Then fill in some information about component directory and about endpoint itself. And just send the request and wait for approval on component directory side.
Yeah, there are common questions like after sending the registration request, there are the red certificates, and this is because your registration was not approved yet on the component directory. So you need to wait until the ECP component directory administrator confirms that your registration is approved, and then you can continue with following steps like the message path creation.
The endpoint, and it's running. So I will log in. Yeah, and insert the registration key store. Password. Here just some information about component directory. So URL and component code, which is Zoom in this case.
Yeah, this is code of the component directory.
Yeah. The necessary step is check the connectivity. And then continue and fill in the information about ECP endpoint. So for code, this endpoint will be called Cheetah. As project name and environment name, those are, let's say, those values will be displayed right here in header, so you can then easily recognize which endpoint it is. Project name, it's installation, install, and environment name is Windows. And for organization, you can choose, for example, Win, some contact person, Jodo, email address, and a contact phone, which have to be in this format, which starts with 00. Then also check that I read the GDPR disclaimer right here, and I can send the request. And I will be redirected to the dashboard. A component directory. I will just do this request and wait for initial synchronization. Then we can check the following steps, which will be update runtime configuration, especially enabling ARMQP to provide communication channel between EDX and ECP, and also add a new user to users.properties file. Again, it's a part of prerequisite of EDX toolbox installation. I can maybe add the user right now. So userless properties. I will add box, and actually the password will be the same, so I can just reuse this encrypted password. Also, I have to add the toolbox to the group.properties file. So I will just yeah, so the ECP endpoint is successfully synchronized with component directory. And now I can create a message path. This process of creating message path and sending a message is described in documentation, ECP installation guide, chapter. Yeah. Let's focus which one it is. Yeah, in chapter 8. Yeah, still the same chapter. Yeah, it's just another part, which is context changes in runtime configurations. The runtime configurations are mentioned here. So just enable the ARMQP and set the ARMQP send handler, which is needed for communication with EDX. And here in chapter 8.4 is process how to create a message path. So I've already prepared the runtime configuration. Is this, so ARMQP API enable ARMQP send handler as a bean name and type will be asterisk to enable it for all message types. I just change those two properties because we change it during registration, but this configuration will override the current project name and rename Windows. So I will upload this file. As you can see, the file was successfully uploaded, and ECP endpoint should reload its configuration to apply those changes. Right now, I can send a message to itself. It's any message type. And the message should be received. Maybe we have to wait 1 more minute for synchronization with ECP broker. Where we are. So we're basically before this last step. So after a message is received, I will just restart the ECP to apply the changes in use.properties and group.properties. Yeah, still 1 more minute for synchronization.
Yeah, this is because ECP broker is synchronizing with the component directory every 5 minutes by default. So it takes some time until ECP broker recognizes there is a new ECP endpoint registered in the network.
The message should be, so maybe I will try to send another one. Right now, they should be synchronized. Yeah, so both messages are successfully received by this endpoint. So right now I will restart the ECP endpoint and continue with EDX toolbox. The installation of EDX toolbox will be also provided with encrypted passwords. After that, as I mentioned, we have to change the ports because EDX is running on the same server as ECP. And then upgrade configuration, update configuration, and and replace key store. Installation. It's starting on chapter 6.2. Installation on Windows. So the first step is just install the application. We will choose the user interface installation. Again, same as ECB. So I will choose new EDX toolbox installation, choose the installation path. Right now, I can choose if I want to register it as a Windows service, and also if I want to change the default port. Default ports on EDX toolbox are 8443, for example, but if I check this checkbox, the port will be changed to 9443. So I will check it because ECP is running on the server. Again, I don't want to allow this. Finish installation, and then same as on ECP, choose which password I want to use. So custom and encrypted. Right now, again, choose some key, choose algorithm, and then fill all the passwords. So the EDX toolbox is installed. The ports have been changed automatically during installation. So let's continue with the second step, and that's the update of configuration. Mentioned in chapter 7, EDX installation guide. And here, EDX toolbox configuration. And here is described all changes in EDX.properties. So, and it's like described here. So I'll open this file and change the toolbox code, which must be the same as endpoint code. So theta in this case. Also, I have to define the service catalog code, the default service catalog code, which is line. And then another necessary change is to change the authentication alias from EDX module out to ECP module out. And here as well, the ECP and Linux running on the same server, so I can use this localhost. And that's basically all in this file. Here you can see that the default port has changed, because by default on the older versions there is 5672 instead of 6672. And then replace the key store. So I will copy authentication key store and copy it here to get toolbox. The default one, and rename this one. The EDX toolbox and ACP endpoint must have the same certificate authority.
Yeah. Basically, this is the easiest way how to make EDX toolbox communication with the ECP endpoint make work. Like in this way, EDX toolbox is trusting the ECP endpoint. The other way is that you are using the default key store and you will just import the certification authority, but it is more time consuming. So we will use just this simplest option how to make the communication work.
Yeah, and right now the last step is start EDX. I will start it. And start. Meantime, we can check ECP endpoint, just restart it, so I have to log in again. Maybe not. So the endpoint is running and toolbox will be running as well in a few seconds. Let's go back to documentation. And yeah, the starting of the EDX toolbox is mentioned in chapter 6.2.5. Just find it. Yeah, right here. You can use command line, or you can use graphical user interface to it using this window. And the next step will be displaying the version on the user interface, and then just send another message using EDX CP. So you can see the version 490 and on Toolbox. You can see it right here. You can check if the configuration was successfully downloaded from service catalog. Here the last synchronization time. This is the time when EDX Toolbox requested and received the network configuration from service catalog. And here you can see that during the startup, EDX Toolbox will request the network configuration. You can send a message and send it to Tiger. For example, this one. Yeah, the message is successfully received, which means that the connection between two toolboxes is working correctly. So that was the last step of installation. We have successfully installed both applications on same server. And if you have any question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Miguel Escribano from Red Eléctrica de España. I have several comments according to that. After a period of time in which we have been used these software packages, we would like to avoid the situation of having some black box. And after making many tickets on OPD support, something that we would appreciate very much is to have some guideline, what we should monitor, what are the processes that are up and running, what are the key performance indicators that are warning us if there is a problem between connection between TSO side and central components. These kind of things are, let me say, giving us the visibility to know what is happening if something is not working properly. We have detected when we have sent the ticket to OPD support that some of the problems that we have reported, the final conclusion is that having a look to the logs, we don't know what is the situation. We cannot mitigate what is the problem. And finally, what is even worse is the problem could arise once again. So what we would encourage to you is to receive some kind of guideline to know what are the artifacts, the processes, the signals that are enabling us to know what is happening in the daily behavior of these packages in order to monitor if something is not working properly, to have a look on that and to keep an eye on that to know what is the situation, because what we would like to avoid is to have like a black box that we are calling but we cannot control. And what is the situation on that is that something is not working. We are like a blind people. We have no control on what is the situation. So once again, I encourage to you to receive this kind of information, because I think that otherwise the situation of our IGNs that we are sending, many applications that we use with EDX to receive data and to send the data, we would like to control and to be able to know if there is something that is not working properly, to know as soon as possible what is the situation on that.
Thank you for your question and for your remarks. The current situation is there is a monitoring bundle available, which contains a list of recommended checks for all OPD client components. So it's the ECP endpoint, EDX toolbox, OPDM client. And together with some implementation of the checks for the Nagios. We have also prepared a document of where are described the crucial monitoring metrics which should be monitored and what exactly is expected as the monitoring result and what the monitoring check is responsible for. And there will be a new version of this OPDE monitoring bundle, which will include this extended information like the crucial checks. And for now, it is available for REE in the Jira ticket OPDE 367. So you can revise the document if this is what you expect. And of course, we are available for you for a call to go through the document and to make sure that everything is understandable now, or we can extend the document by some additional information if needed. So if you can, please check the Jira ticket OPD 367 and then contact us if further call or support is required on these monitoring topics.
Could you send us by email the link for downloading?
I can send you to the chat. I can send you the link to the ticket to the chat. Give me a second.
Thank you.
Okay, so it is available for you.
Thank you.
And let us know if more information is needed. Maybe in the future, this monitoring bundle could be part of the ECCo release. There's ongoing discussion on this because right now it is like these packages are separate. So yeah, maybe it will be even more user friendly in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, then we probably want to thank you for your attention.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is it possible to show the LDAP possibility in the new version?
It's not part of this webinar, so
This is out of the scope for this webinar.
All right. Okay.
But we can align with ENTSO-E if maybe we could create a separate webinar for this LDAP configuration because it is like more advanced configuration type. Or